You're choosing work over family? You'll die alone with your spreadsheets, Mom screamed. Dad added, your sister will never forgive you. 3 months later, they saw my face on the cover of Forbes. You're dead to me. Those were the last words my sister Vanessa spoke before her wedding day, the wedding I missed for a boardroom in Manhattan. She didn't know that boardroom would change everything. She didn't know that while she was walking down the aisle in her $40,000 Vera Wang gown, I was signing documents that would make me the youngest CEO in the history of a Fortune 500 company. But here's what nobody in my family understood: I didn't miss her wedding by choice. I missed it because I'd spent 6 years building something they never believed in, and that single meeting was the culmination of every sacrifice, every late night, every moment they told me I was wasting my life. And the cruelest irony? The company I acquired 3 months later, the deal that put my face on Forbes, belonged to the man my sister had just married. My name is Vivian Mercer, and I grew up as the invisible middle child in a family that worshipped two things: tradition and my older sister. Vanessa was perfect. Blonde, beautiful, effortlessly charming, the kind of woman who walked into a room and made everyone feel like they'd been waiting for her arrival. She was homecoming queen, sorority president, and engaged to Bradley Whitmore III by the time she was 24. Bradley came from old money. His family owned Whitmore Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing company that had been coasting on reputation and legacy contracts for 3 generations. To my parents, he was everything a son-in-law should be: wealthy, connected, and completely non-threatening. Then there was me. I was the awkward one. The one who'd rather read financial reports than attend parties. The one who graduated top of her class at Wharton while my family barely acknowledged it because Vanessa had just gotten engaged the same week. That's nice, Vivian, Mom had said when I called to share the news about graduating summa cum laude. But have you heard? Bradley proposed. We're looking at venues this weekend. Can you help Vanessa with the guest list? I learned early that my achievements would always be footnotes to Vanessa's main story. After graduation, I joined Mercer & Associates, no relation, just a coincidence that felt like fate. It was a struggling consulting firm with good bones and terrible leadership. Within 2 years, I'd restructured their entire operations division. Within 4, I was VP of strategy. My family didn't understand what I did. So you just tell other companies what to do? Dad asked once at Thanksgiving. I identify inefficiencies and implement solutions that increase profitability, I explained. Sounds made up, my younger brother Marcus laughed. Like corporate astrology. Vanessa had smiled that pitying smile she'd perfected over the years. Not everyone needs a fancy career, Viv. Some of us find fulfillment in family and relationships. She'd squeezed Bradley's hand meaningfully. Bradley had smirked at me from across the table. He always smirked. From the moment Vanessa introduced us, he looked at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't be bothered to solve, ambitious but ultimately irrelevant. I smiled back and said nothing. But I remembered. The opportunity came 6 months before Vanessa's wedding. Mercer & Associates was being considered for acquisition by Thornton Capital, one of the largest private equity firms in the country. The deal would either make us a subsidiary, essentially dissolving our identity, or, if negotiated correctly, it could position us for something far more interesting. I saw a third option nobody else did. Thornton was overextended. They'd made aggressive acquisitions over the past 3 years and were hemorrhaging cash on underperforming assets. Their stock price was artificially inflated by market optimism, but anyone who looked closely at their quarterly reports could see the cracks. I spent 3 months building a counterproposal. Instead of being acquired, Mercer & Associates would secure independent funding, go public with an IPO, and position ourselves to acquire Thornton's struggling subsidiaries, including their crown jewel of bad investments, Whitmore Industries. Yes. My sister's fiancé's family company. Whitmore Industries had been bleeding money for years. Bradley's father had made a series of catastrophic decisions. And Bradley himself had the business acumen of a golden retriever, all charm, no substance. Thornton had acquired them 2 years ago hoping to turn things around, but they'd only accelerated the decline. My proposal was audacious. My boss, Gerald, called it financial suicide. The board called it the most innovative restructuring plan they'd seen in 20 years. They gave me a timeline, 6 months to secure funding, finalize partnerships, and prepare for the IPO. If I succeeded, I'd be named CEO. The final meeting with investors was scheduled for October 15th. Vanessa's wedding was October 15th. I tried to explain. This meeting has been scheduled for months, I told my mother over the phone. International investors are flying in from Tokyo, London, Dubai. I can't reschedule, can't or won't. Mom's voice could cut glass when she was angry. This is your sister's wedding, Vivian. The most important day of her life. And you're choosing a meeting? It's not just a meeting, Mom. It's It's always something with you, isn't it? Always some excuse. Some spreadsheet. Some deal that's more important than your own family. That's not fair. Your sister has done everything for this family. Everything. And you can't take one day to support her? I closed my eyes. I've supported Vanessa my entire life. I've been to every recital, every graduation, every engagement party. I planned her bridal shower. I organized her bachelorette weekend. But this one day, I have something that I can't move. Then you've made your choice. The line went dead. The morning of October 15th, I woke up at 4 a.m. I put on my best suit, navy blue, perfectly tailored, the one I'd bought with my first bonus. I reviewed my presentation one final time. I called my assistant to confirm every detail. At 6 a.m., my phone exploded. Vanessa, I always knew you didn't care about anyone but yourself. Don't bother coming to Christmas. Dad, your mother is devastated. I hope your meeting is worth losing your family. Marcus, wow. Even for you, this is cold. Mom, you're choosing work over family? You'll die alone with your spreadsheets. Your sister will never forgive you. I turned off my phone. At 9 a.m., I walked into a conference room filled with the most powerful investors in 3 continents. I presented a vision for a company that didn't exist yet, a company that would rise from the ashes of firms like Thornton and the failures they de-accumulated. At 4:47 p.m., while my sister was exchanging vows with Bradley Whitmore III, I was shaking hands on a $2.3 billion funding commitment. At 6:12 p.m., while the reception was starting and my empty seat was being noticed and discussed, the board of Mercer and Associates officially appointed me CEO. I was 29 years old. I went home that night, poured myself a glass of wine, and cried until I couldn't breathe. Not because I regretted my choice, but because I knew my family would never understand that it wasn't a choice at all. It was the culmination of everything I'd worked for while they looked the other way. The next 3 months were a blur. We filed for our IPO. The market responded beyond our wildest projections. Our stock price doubled in the first week. Business magazines started calling. Interview requests poured in. And I began acquiring Thornton's failing assets, one by one. The strategy was elegant in its simplicity. Thornton had overpaid for struggling companies, couldn't turn them around, and was now desperate to offload them to shore up their balance sheet. I bought them at a fraction of their original value, implemented the same restructuring strategies that had saved Mercer and Associates, and watched them transform into profitable operations. Then came Whitmore Industries. I hadn't planned to make it personal. Business decisions shouldn't be emotional, that's the first rule of corporate strategy. But when Thornton's CEO called me personally to discuss offloading Whitmore Industries, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not revenge. Not satisfaction. Just completion. They're hemorrhaging $4 million a quarter, he said. The son, Bradley something, he's been acting CEO since his father's stroke. Complete disaster. We'll take $12 million just to get it off our books. The company had been valued at $89 million when Thornton acquired it. I'll give you $8 million, I said. Final offer. He took it. The Forbes interview happened 2 weeks later. I hadn't sought it out, my PR team had been fielding media requests for months, and Forbes had been persistent. They wanted to profile the youngest CEO in our company's history, the woman who'd turned a struggling consulting firm into an acquisition powerhouse in under a year. We did the interview at my office. The photographer took shots of me at my desk, in the conference room, standing by the window overlooking Manhattan. Standard corporate profile stuff. Then the journalist asked about my personal life. What do your family think of your success? I paused. We're navigating a complicated period. I understand you missed your sister's wedding for the investor meeting that launched your IPO. Any regrets? I looked at her carefully. I regret that the timing forced me to make a choice. I don't regret building something I believe in. And the acquisition of Whitmore Industries? I understand there's a family connection there. I smiled. Business decisions are based on market opportunity, not personal history. It was the truth. Mostly. The magazine came out in January. My face on the cover. The headline, the 29-year-old who just acquired her biggest competitor, how Vivian Mercer is rewriting the rules of corporate America. My phone, the personal one I barely used anymore, started ringing for the first time in 3 months. Mom, we need to talk. Vanessa, what the hell is this? Dad, call us immediately. I let them wait. I had meetings. 3 days later, I finally called my mother. Vivian. Her voice was different. Measured. Almost careful. Why didn't you tell us? Tell you what? About all of this. The company. The Forbes article. We had no idea, you never asked. Silence. You never asked what I was working on, I continued. You never asked why that meeting was important. You told me I was choosing spreadsheets over family. You told me I'd die alone. You didn't ask a single question about what I was building or why it mattered. We didn't know. Because you didn't want to know. My career has always been an inconvenience to you. Something that took attention away from Vanessa. Something that made family dinners awkward because you didn't understand it. I took a breath. I tried to explain. For years, I tried. And every time, you made me feel like I was speaking a language you'd chosen not to learn. Mom was quiet for a long moment. Bradley's company, the article said you acquired it. I did. He's devastated. Vanessa called us crying. They were counting on that company. They were counting on a company that was already failing. That had been failing for years. Bradley had neither the skills nor the interest to save it. I kept my voice steady. I bought it because it was a good business opportunity. I'm going to restructure it, make it profitable, and either sell it or integrate it into our portfolio. That's what I do. But he's family now. He's Vanessa's husband. He was never my family. And frankly, neither were any of you, when it mattered. I hung up. 2 weeks later, I received an unexpected visitor at my office. Bradley Whitmore III, looking significantly less polished than I'd ever seen him, standing in my lobby and demanding to see me. Security was ready to escort him out, but I told them to let him up. He deserved to say whatever he'd come to say. You did this on purpose, he started before he'd even fully entered my office. You planned this? Some kind of sick revenge because Vanessa, sit down, Bradley. I'm not going to. Sit down. He sat. The smirk was gone. In its place was something I'd never seen on his face before, fear. Your company was failing before I bought it, I said calmly. Your father made bad decisions for a decade. You made worse ones in the 18 months you were in charge. Thornton bought you hoping to turn things around but didn't have the expertise. I do. So what, you're going to fire everyone? Destroy everything my family built? No. I'm going to save it. I slid a folder across my desk. These are the restructuring plans. New leadership, actual qualified executives. Modernized manufacturing processes. Renegotiated supplier contracts. Within 18 months, Whitmore Industries will be profitable for the first time in 7 years. He stared at the folder. Why? Because that's what I do. I fix broken things. I find value where others see failure. I leaned back. You'll receive a fair severance package. More than fair, actually. And if you'd like, there's a junior position in our marketing department. Entry level. You'd have to actually work, but you'd have a job. His face reddened. You're offering me a junior position? In my own family's company? It's not your family's company anymore. And I'm offering you more than you deserve, which is nothing. I stood. Take the weekend. Discuss it with Vanessa. Let me know Monday. He left without another word. The family confrontation happened at Easter. I hadn't planned to attend, but my father called personally, something he'd never done, and asked me to come. We need to talk as a family, he'd said. Please, Vivian. So I went. The house looked the same. The decorations, the food, the seating arrangements, everything exactly as it had been for 30 years of holidays. Vanessa was already there with Bradley, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Marcus and his wife. Mom, tight-lipped and anxious. Dad, suddenly looking older than I remembered. Thank you for coming, Dad started once we were all seated. We owe you an apology. Vanessa made a sound of protest, but Dad held up his hand. We've treated your career as an afterthought for years. We didn't understand what you were building, and instead of trying to understand, we dismissed it. That was wrong. Mom nodded stiffly. We shouldn't have said those things before the wedding. We were upset, but that doesn't excuse. You told me I'd die alone with my spreadsheets, I said quietly. You said my sister would never forgive me. I was angry. You were honest. For the first time in years, you told me exactly how you felt about my life. About my choices. I looked around the table. I've spent my entire life trying to earn a place in this family that Vanessa was given automatically. I graduated at the top of my class, no one noticed. I got promoted, no one asked about it. I was building one of the most successful corporate turnarounds in recent history, and you thought I was playing with spreadsheets. Vanessa finally spoke. So what, we're supposed to apologize because you're successful now? Because you bought my husband's company and humiliated him? I saved your husband's company. It would have been bankrupt within 2 years. I offered him a job, which, by the way, he declined, and I gave him a severance package worth more than most people make in a decade. That's not the point. What is the point, Vanessa? I turned to face her fully. That I was supposed to stay small so you could stay special? That I was supposed to miss the most important opportunity of my career so I could watch you get married to a man who's been smirking at me for 5 years like I'm beneath him? I never. You did. All of you. You never said it directly, but you made it clear, my job was to support Vanessa. To celebrate Vanessa. to make sure Vanessa's light was never diminished by anything I achieved. I stood up. I'm done apologizing for being successful. I'm done pretending my career is less important than anyone's wedding or engagement or whatever milestone I'm expected to minimize myself for. The table was silent. I love this family, I continued. I've always loved this family. But I'm not going to shrink anymore. I'm not going to apologize for missing a wedding that happened on the most important day of my professional life. And I'm not going to feel guilty for buying a failing company and saving it just because the person who drove it into the ground happens to be married to my sister. Dad cleared his throat. We understand. Do you? We're trying to. He looked at me with something I'd never seen before, respect. What you've accomplished, we should have paid attention. We should have asked. We're asking now. That Easter didn't fix everything. Vanessa and I didn't speak for another 6 months. Bradley never took the job I offered, his pride wouldn't allow it, but last I heard, he was working at a friend's real estate firm, doing fine. My relationship with my parents slowly improved. They started asking about my work, reading articles about my company. Mom even attended one of my speaking engagements, a small conference in Chicago, and sat in the front row with tears in her eyes. I didn't understand, she told me afterward. I didn't understand what you were building. You're extraordinary, Vivian. It was the first time she'd ever said anything like that. I know I wasn't, she continued. I know I compared you to Vanessa, and I know I made you feel like you weren't enough. But watching you up there, talking about leadership and transformation and all these things I still don't fully understand. I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago. I hugged her. We cried. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, some wounds take longer to heal, but it was a start. 2 years later, Whitmore Industries was valued at $127 million, the highest in its history. I'd kept the name out of respect for its legacy, but the company was virtually unrecognizable from the failing operation I'd acquired. I sent Bradley the annual report anonymously. Maybe petty. Maybe necessary. Vanessa eventually reached out. Coffee, tentative and awkward, neither of us sure how to navigate this new dynamic where I wasn't the overlooked younger sister anymore. We're not close, I'm not sure we ever will be, but we're trying. My company continues to grow. We've acquired 12 more struggling businesses, turned around 9 of them, and become one of the most respected corporate restructuring firms in the country. The Forbes profile led to others, Bloomberg, Fortune, a TED Talk that went semi-viral. I'm 32 now. Not married. No kids yet. Still working 60-hour weeks. And I've never been happier. They laughed when I skipped the wedding. They said I'd regret it. They said I was choosing spreadsheets over family, that I'd die alone, that my sister would never forgive me. What they didn't understand, what they couldn't understand, was that I wasn't choosing work over family. I was choosing myself. For the first time in my entire life, I was saying, my dreams matter. My goals matter. The thing I've been building while you looked the other way, it matters. And 3 months later, when they saw my face on that magazine cover, when they read about the company I'd built and the acquisition I'd made, they finally understood what I'd been trying to tell them all along. I was never the invisible middle child. I was just waiting for them to see me. They said I'd die alone with my spreadsheets. Instead, I became the youngest CEO in company history, acquired my brother-in-law's failing business, and proved that the sister they'd overlooked had been building an empire the whole time. Some people earn their family's respect through obedience. I earned mine through excellence. And if that makes me selfish, then I'll take selfish over invisible any day.